This is DT Grant and the Practice Podcast, the place where we dive deep into the hidden world of healers. Today, I'll be interviewing a woman who is called to shamanism in the wake of leaving a high-stress career, something many of us can relate to. And now, welcome Julie Hannon.
Morning.
Morning, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. I thought that was kind of crazy how I ran into you at Alma's.
That was so
hugging.
crazy.
3 days after texting Julie to ask her for an interview, and still having not heard back, I went to see Alma, the Hindu hugging saint, for the first time. There were hundreds to maybe 1,000 people there. After a recognition of Alma and meditation and chanting and singing, I was sitting in line waiting for a hug. There was a woman standing next to me chatting with someone. She looked so familiar, and I had to interrupt and say, "Excuse me, what is your name? You look so familiar." And she replied, "Julie." And I had to laugh because I'd only met her once, 3 to 4 years earlier, and there she was, standing right beside me. I know, I had just texted you days before, and then haven't seen you except once, maybe 3 to 4 years ago. And then there you were at Alma's.
Yeah. Well, and standing in front of you.
I know.
Also not like just passing by, just standing there talking to somebody right there.
Julie and I did a personal shamanic healing session together in her workspace. Clearly, this is just a taste of my 75-minute session with Julie, taking highlights from my experience that I thought would be enlightening for others to hear about.
What would you like to walk out of here today with?
I didn't really have any ideas.
All right, come pick a stone off the cloth. Okay. And just check in with yourself. Do a quick breathe in through your heart. Exhale and let everything go down into the earth. Everything that we've talked about up until now, just let it all go. And then tune in again and breathe in through your heart again and exhale down into the earth. Ask and notice what shifts when I ask this question. Ask your body, what wants attention now? And it's just going to come in a flash. It's already there, and whatever wants attention, and then feel around that space in your physical self.
It's weirdly here.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't expect it.
And what is this part of your body telling you in your low back? And what are the feelings or the thoughts or the attention that goes in with that? What do you got?
I don't know.
What wants to have attention right now for clearing and balancing? Ask your body.
Maybe heart.
Mm-hmm. Great. Ask yourself to go to the source of this in your soul's journey.
Well, I feel like it all began when my dad died.
Mm-hmm. But were you there when he died? Present with him when he was
in an
dying?
ambulance, but I was in the house.
So he was at home and somebody called
an
an ambulance?
He had a heart attack, yeah.
At home and somebody called?
Yeah.
Oh, he was 41, you said. Good
Yeah.
Lord. Was he alive when he got in the ambulance, as far as you knew, at 6?
Yeah. My mom they woke up, he was 6 in the morning having a heart attack. And he died on the way to the hospital.
Okay. I'm sorry about that. And I want you to check in with that little girl and see if she felt secured or grounded.
Yeah. She was like a free, wild, ratty kid who loved to be devilish.
So what I want you to do is tiptoe up slowly to the death day. What happens? Does she get untethered?
Honestly, I didn't feel anything. I was in the living room with the priest and all these people crying, and I forced myself to cry because I thought they'd think I was evil if I didn't, because I didn't understand. You know, a lot of times people say, go to a happy place. Mm-hmm. I don't have many. I feel like I've carried this like darkness through my life. It's with my mom and my siblings all the time.
Before he died?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he was a great man.
So your job here, in addition to setting an intention, if you want to release this from the source, is to focus on your breath, in through your nose and out through your mouth. And that's really your whole job.
this hip pain has just gotten worse and worse, and just holding and lying on the table, I could feel it, and it's released. I still feel a part of me like wanting to hold. Nothing was making it go away.
Did you feel your sacral adjustment?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like it totally adjusted. There was
here,
nothing.
And then it dissolved. Julie and I wrapped up our session, and at another time, we did an interview. Yeah, I was just looking at your website. Are you ready to start?
I am.
First, how did you get into doing this work?
Well, I studied shamanism in my 20s with Native American shamans from North America and was very curious. So it was very meaningful work to me. And then I got married and had children and bought houses and built a human resources career. And that was all 30 to 40. And then when I turned 40, I was having some health issues, adrenal fatigue, and I decided to leave my job. I was a HR executive director. I left my job May 31st. Somebody gave me a book about shamanism from South American lens, Andean shamanism. And it turned out that the book was written by a person who did workshops, and I didn't even know that. The book that I received about shamanism I read and loved and just put it on my shelf. When I read the book, it was just like a returning home to myself. And then in November, I was going stir crazy being a full-time at-home mom, and I looked up in this Kripalu catalog, and the man who wrote the book was doing an intro weekend, and I went to the weekend, and then as soon as I met him, I knew I needed to study with him. Before I even graduated from the school, they asked me to be faculty. So it started in my 20s, and then it restarted when I was 40, and that was about 18 years ago.
So in your 20s, did you study shamanism in the U.S.?
So that was all in the U.S.
Oh.
Yeah, it was some like local teachers, and then also with a man named Jaime Storm and Swan Storm, who were big teachers in the 70s, and he actually wrote the first book ever on the medicine wheel and was ostracized from his tribe for writing down the teachings, because traditionally shamanic teachings are all oral traditions. It really is, the shamanic teachings really are inside me.
Yeah, it was meant to be, it sounds like.
Yeah.
How does it continue to help you?
As I mentioned earlier, part of the reason I left my job was because I was having adrenal fatigue. I had a stressful job. So part of it was helping me orient to life without stress. Like, how do we live in a world that's very stressful and let the world go on around us but not getting eaten by it?
So do you think it was doing something that was meaningful to you that shifted, but also what you were learning that was helping you?
I think that it was what I was learning, because I used to say I loved my work, I just didn't love my life. Now I love both.
You loved your work and you didn't love your life because the work was so stressful that it was taking away from your life.
Yeah, it was taking away from my life. And I didn't have a way to approach it that was anything but all-consuming. In part of that's the industry of biotech, part of it's what's expected. The medicine wheel method is a place of giving tools that really should be part of core curriculum of schooling or education. It's teachings that help us live life in ease, I guess. Maybe not in ease, because there are storms, but how do you ride the waves of that?
Wow, this seems like so many people are going to relate to this, because so many people are burnt out by their work and need something more meaningful. Yeah. I know shamanism is vast. Were there certain areas you gravitated towards in all of it?
Well, my purpose is to help people connect to themselves, to spirit, and to nature. The parts that I gravitated toward, I guess really ceremonies. And when I say ceremonies, so there's these 4 levels of engagement that we have as in our human experience. The body, we engage through our physical self, the mind and emotions through our thinking self, through our soul, which is our spiritual self, and through energy. Now we know that the mind-body connection is a thing, right? Mm-hmm. Nobody would say, if you're really stressed and sick, that your stress isn't contributing to your illness. There's no question about that anymore. I did my master's in psychology. I had to convince people that that was a thing. It's changed a lot. People are really recognizing the influence of this energy in more mainstream areas. That's where I work. And the way to engage at those levels are through ceremony. When I say ceremony, I mean fire ceremony, or creating rites of passage, or using objects to make a mandala on the earth to work things at the energetic instead of in the thinking. The tools that really spoke to me were about how to navigate that world of the soul. The shaman work as close to the pure energy as possible. If you come see me in person, I work with you through physical objects in a physical way, but I also have half my practice on the phone.
Got it.
One of the things you do is rites of passage.
Yes.
What does that mean?
So during times of big transition, marriage, divorce, birth, death, coming of age, all those places, they are initiations. If you don't have a ceremony to celebrate it, sometimes it's missed. A rite of passage is something that supports you in crossing a threshold from one thing to the next.
Can you do those rites of passage, just thinking about the end of a relationship or a marriage? Can you do it one side with only one person present?
Absolutely.
You can.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, we're in a relationship and a conversation right now, but we're both having our own experience. The partnership is a third thing. There's you, there's me, there's the partnership, and this is what you're doing the ceremony around dissolving, ending, honoring, appreciating the partnership. I know from all the years of doing what I do that as soon as someone books a session with me, the work starts. Life starts to change, they have different dreams, the things just start to happen. When I was really starting this in my practice, I would really sit in the morning with who my clients were for the day, be really clear, like open sacred space for the day. And as soon as I sat down to do that in the morning, my clients would feel me. And I would like start to connect in with you and people would feel that. Were you working on me this morning? No. I was just checking in with my day. And when I was starting out, I had to practice for free on people and all that stuff when I was learning. And I would manifest people who said they didn't believe in any of this and it wasn't their thing, but they were happy to help me with learning. And then they'd be laying on the table and they'd say, I don't know what this means, but somebody in the room is telling me that you're supposed to spit on me now and you have permission. And I was thinking, can I do this or not do this?
Before they said that, you were thinking of spitting on them?
Yeah, but I was thinking, wow, this is really weird. I don't really want to spit on a person.
Are there examples of changes you've seen in people from doing this work?
All kinds of transformations. Often what happens is people come for 3 sessions and then later on they refer somebody to me and I hear about their transformation from the person who's been referred to me. So, I've had people who come to me
that's awesome.
because they wanted to get married or because they wanted to cure cancer, or because they wanted to change their physical self. They wanted to have peace and harmony in their house or with their kids. Or some people say, you escaped the corporate world. I want what you're having. How did you do that? I have a lot of executives actually who will stay in their jobs and see the world differently and do their jobs differently. And as a consequence, their lives change within their existing life.
Yeah, they're struggling with the path they're on, but then they approach it differently to be able to find fulfillment.
A lot of them are super successful and smart, but they don't know how to make it better. They've tried everything and they can't change it themselves. I remember somebody came for trouble with somebody that they had dated. They really were having trouble letting go of the wishing that they were partners. And that's what we worked on, and we cleared that issue. But after the second session, they said to me, oh, it's so weird. I'm sleeping through the night, and I haven't slept through the night in 8 years. And they never even told me that was an issue. Wow. So oftentimes there's these tangential things. Somebody came in my office one time and we were working on something for their emotional well-being. And as they were walking out, they told me they drank a lot of alcohol every day. And was that going to be a problem? I did something else to support them if they were going to be doing that. But as it turned out, they walked out of the door that day and stopped drinking and never drank again. So when we shift the pattern, it's just different. You can't go back. The energy changes and then everything's different.
I'm kind of fixated on something you said when you were talking about someone not being able to let go of a relationship. Someone I was talking to recently who was having these really strong feelings for this person, and it wasn't a good situation. They said, how do I stop feeling this? And I thought, I don't know. Can you help people in those situations to not have these attachments?
Yes. And part of it is that it changes your relationship to attachment. So one of the first teachings in the medicine wheel method is about releasing attachment. And the Buddhists say attachment is one of the biggest sources of suffering.
That's right.
So, me personally, in my life, attachment is a challenging thing. I have none, and then I have all of it. And I have none. I'm a human having a human experience. One of my teachers in Peru sells lots of art and things. I said I wanted to buy this piece of art, and he was like one of his favorite pieces of art. And I said, you don't have to sell it to me. It's okay. He said, no, attachment is a bitch. I must sell it. If you want it, you must have it. And then we're both working with our attachment.
So do you have that piece of art?
I do.
It's
in my shamanic office.
Reminds you of attachment every time you look at it, I bet.
That's right. If somebody else came in and said, that's mine, then it would have to go, right? It's not about anything that we have.
Because I know you do these solstice ceremonies and people bring things to let go of. Do you think it's important to put things into the fire to release? Is that an important thing you would recommend for people to do?
Absolutely. This is the place we were talking about earlier about how to change things. So when we work in fire and putting things in the fire, that's a ceremony that releases the matter back to energy. Like even the example you used of someone stuck in a pattern with somebody that they want to be in relationship with. Find all the places that pattern is in your life, blow it in, give it to the fire, and let it, the energy transform, be released from that pattern.
Well, I want to ask you about plant medicine at some point, and I don't know if you do anything with plant medicine, but I wonder if you see any risks with journeys without medicine.
I would say this is true for both situations, actually, is that you go with a trusted guide.
Right.
And you have somebody who's working from experience, you know, that they've had a lot of training and they have practice. If you go with a guide up Everest who's never been up Everest and a storm starts coming in and they don't know how to get down, you could die. That's the most extreme example. Nobody's going to die from a shamanic journey. It's being another realm. So there's not tremendous risk in shamanic journeying.
Yeah, I'm thinking about all areas of healing, and when you go into a place of dealing with challenges, stuff comes up, and sometimes it gets worse before it gets better.
Yeah, and even with shamanic work, I'd hope that you'd have more than one session. Most people that I work with have had amazing first sessions, but I'm interested in helping you have an amazing life, not just an amazing sort of vacation experience. So I want to help people with the transformation across thresholds, right, into a new place. Like, let's go through the transformation. Let's stay in it, even if it gets uncomfortable. And it doesn't always get uncomfortable. That's not a given. But it does sometimes take effort.
I imagine there are cases where people have a lot to go through and it's uncomfortable, but sometimes it's not a big thing. So I see you take people on trips to Peru.
Yeah.
What is involved in those?
The Peru trips are about exploring the sacred lands of Peru and the Sacred Valley.
Okay, so you go into the area of Cusco?
We go into the Cusco valleys and go to lots of different places around the Cusco Valley, including Machu Picchu. Some other places that are a little lesser known to the public. Do a lot of shamanic journeying, actually, in different places in different ways, lots of different kinds of ceremonies. And walk into the ancient temples and then also up to Lake Titicaca. In the Andean tradition, we are children of the sun, and humanity was birthed at the lake. So the lake is the origin. Up until now, they are not plant medicine trips. They are really trips to connect to the Andean practices and the Amurumuru practices of the high plateau around the lakes.
Is ayahuasca part of what you do?
It's part of my own spiritual practice, but it's not part of what I share at this point in my practice.
Okay. Do you have anything you want to say about ayahuasca?
I would say this because people will be curious. I will say it is super, super important, more important than with shamanic journeying, that you have a guide with experience and a safe space to be in to have that experience, and that you go with clarity about what you're doing that for. So it's good to set an intention, like anything in life, but especially with that, because the ayahuasca or psilocybin or all these hallucinatory medicines are all things that open the doorway to the infinite. And you can find whatever you want out there, and sometimes things you don't want.
It's true. When Julie and I met for our healing session, she pulled out a crystal attached to a chain, a pendulum, and started asking yes or no questions. I have tried dowsing with a pendulum many times and find it ineffective for me. So I took this opportunity to ask her some questions about how to use this pendulum.
I have tried dowsing and it never works. Is it maybe because I'm asking questions about myself and I'm influencing it?
You start asking more neutral questions. Dowsing is an ancient method of connecting to the energy. So people used to find waters and wells with dowsing rods. You take copper, they're like L shapes, but a short piece, and you hold them gently, or traditionally you put them in something like a pipe, not your hand, so they swing, and you walk across the land and it will move when you get to water. That's a kind of dowsing. So those are called dowsing rods. You can take classes in dowsing, but what you do is you learn what is your yes. You say, show me yes, and show me no.
Right.
My yes is always a clockwise circle, and anything that's not a yes, even just stopped and not moving, is just no. This is not a yes, so it's a no. Right? And then you ask yes and no questions.
Right.
What I learned from the dowsers were you ask 3 questions before you even douse. May I douse? Can I douse? Should I douse? And I added, is it in my best and highest interest to douse? And if you don't get yeses to all those questions, then you don't douse.
Oh.
For me, it's a visual way of listening to my body and my energetics and my soul.
Well, you really live in the world of energy.
Yeah.
I bought land in Costa Rica, and a diviner found the water. He came and he held a stick in an angle and it would move up. He had me do it, but he stood behind me so you could feel it, and it just powerfully moved. I had some question about connecting with your guides, and what sort of ways do people
All the ways.
sense their...
Anyway.
Yeah, so some people may never hear or see anything.
That's
it might
correct.
just be a feeling.
That's correct.
And you may never know what your guide is.
We have spirit guides. Right. We have spirit guides, and it's said in the shamanic traditions that we have 3 to 5 medicine animals that are like our power animals. Some people say it's always less than 3. Some people say it's as many as 5. Who cares? Yeah. You have 1 to some amount of that are your power animals, and all the animals are medicine animals, and all the animals can be guides at any time. There's clairvoyance, clairsentience, clairaudience. You can hear, you can see, some people smell. Everybody has their own unique hotline to the divine. It's their own unique phone number, and you dial and you get the information however you get it. And some of it's a sensation on your skin. I get goosebumps often. I say I have an experience of seeing. I've only ever seen literally with my eyes open a couple of times.
This last woman I interviewed talked about shamanic journeying as a better form of accessing spirituality than meditation, and suggested talking to your spirit guides or ancestors or whatever they are, and whether you see them or hear them or feel them, just talk to them because they're there. And the more you do it, the more you can access that. Do you have anything to say about that, or do you have any suggestions for practices?
Sure. I'm extrapolating from what you just shared about the other person you spoke to about shamanic journeying, that it's helpful to go into these realms with a guide. If you haven't been someone who's had a meditation practice and meditation feels challenging for you, the meditation teacher is your guide in the realm of quieting your mind. Shamanic journeying is a way of accessing the soul level that I've been talking about, and going with a guide helps you to rediscover and remember the realms where your ancestors are, or your spirit guides are, or your medicine animals are, because we're not here alone. We're here connected to all these places, to nature. Most of us haven't been trained in how to listen. When I was a little girl, and I would say to my parents that I talked to the trees on the way home, and they would say, "That's very sweet, but you can't talk to the trees." Why you couldn't talk to the trees at this moment is even beyond me. But I think what they were saying is the trees don't talk back to you, except that they do. Everything in nature has a voice. Shamanic journeying with a guide is a way of exploring what's going on at a soul level, or accessing the support that you have all around you all the time. Like the miracle of us showing up with 1,000 people in the room. You had just called me, and 5 days later I'm standing in front of you, and we haven't seen each other in 4 years. Right. Because you called me to you. Like you were inviting that energy, and I said yes, and that arranged a meeting in the physical realm. The word shaman is the person who is a bridge between the world of energy and matter. They're a bridge, they're a translator, they're a guide, and they navigate that realm of matter and energy. In the Western world, matter is all that matters. But in the spiritual realm, matter doesn't matter at all. It's about being connected to spirit. I think that part of my work with people is that everybody has their own unique way of connecting to spirit.
That's great. If I asked you what being a shaman is, it's connecting matter and energy.
Yeah, it's really about being the bridge between energy and matter. The connection is there. It's about accessing it and using it.
So as far as the work you've been doing for many years,
did you study to be a shaman? Did you get chosen to be a shaman?
Well, so in the traditional cultures, 2 things. They would identify the shaman by the person who got hit by lightning and lives. Okay. I actually have friends in Peru who've been hit by lightning, and I've met other people along the path who've been hit by lightning. Shamans. So that's a thing. But all the places, the village decides who the shaman is. Okay. So that's part of the tradition. And in answer to your question about me, I think the story I told you about hearing the voices of the trees when I was little, nature told me that I was a shaman over and over and over again until I stopped listening in that way. And then when I started studying it formally when I turned 40, and I went when I was having adrenal fatigue and needed to leave my job and save my life. The school inviting me to become a teacher was me answering the call of oh, I'm on this path. This is my calling, and I'm saying yes.
I wanted to see, is there something you feel I haven't asked that is important to address?
I think that we've covered a lot together. Your intention one before we spoke was to ask about journeying, which we talked about. And what I would say about that for people is that journeying gives us access to a part of ourselves that is the biggest part of ourselves in a way. In Western culture, we get so caught up in our mind. Our schooling teaches us to be very literal and not connected to the energetic, and it's 99% of who we are. So look for ways to open the doorway to that and to remember your connection to nature. My dog is here, and I'm as much as part of this as my dog. I'm human, dog is dog, butterfly is butterfly, but we're all part of the same garden. So the journeying is really a way to help explore those territories, even the garden of your own backyard.
Since I'm calling this the Practice Podcast, I'd love for you to describe your practice, your spiritual self-healing, whatever you define as practice.
Well, one of the things I do is called heart math. I have a yoga practice, I have a walking practice, but the one that I can tuck in my pocket and take anywhere is a breath practice that I focus on my heart, and I bring my attention to my heart, and then I breathe in and out of my heart, and I feel a deep connection to appreciation for that ability to breathe and breathe in and out of my heart. And just doing that as you bring your attention there. So you breathe in through your heart and you smile. You breathe in and you calm your body, breathe out and you smile, and then your attention's still on your heart, and you inhale and you know this is a precious moment, and you exhale and you dwell in this precious moment. And that's my simplest practice.
It's beautiful.
And a big practice that I have at least monthly of just being with the fire and releasing and calling in. You can do that with a candle at your stove, in a cast iron pan. You don't have to have a fire pit in your backyard. Fire is our oldest ally. It's a very, very sacred transformational tool. It's really great. So those two things I would offer in the power of practice, in the Practice Podcast.
Thank you so much for all of this.
You're so welcome.
And now I'd love to thank Julie for trusting me enough to relay her story to us all, and for opening herself and her work up to me to be able to create this episode. Once again, I'd love to thank the band Modera Cayenne for letting me use this song. This concludes my second interview of the Practice Podcast. If you'd like to learn more about Julie Hannon and what she offers, as well as what we talked about today, please visit www.thepractice-podcast.com and follow me on the Practice Podcast. This is DT Grant, wishing you a magical and inspiring journey towards health. Thanks for listening.